In my experience, the Venn diagram of people who like motorcycles and the people who like guns is damn near a circle. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about how to merge these two hobbies together, discussing the best ways that I've found executing concealed carry while riding. Stay tuned. Welcome to Squid Tips. I'm Alex. In a previous video, I interviewed Aubrey, the motorcyclist involved in a self-defense shooting in February of 2018, and I very lightly touched on the topic of concealed carrying while riding. Today we're going to go full boil and hit the basics of how to carry on your bike, legality, methods of carry, and lots of best practices to help those who are completely new to the concept. Before we do though, I feel a moral and ethical obligation to say that I don't necessarily encourage or condone concealed carrying. I also don't discourage it. The point is that I'm going to take zero stances on gun control, so I'll leave that to all of you to do in the comments section, but leave me out of it. Have fun!
Part 1. How to legally carry on a motorcycle. First, credit where it's due. A lot of the information I'm going to give you is from an awesome and very informative site, gunstocarry.com. Before you try to put anything I tell you into practice, double check there first, as laws are subject to change, and as I've said before, I'm no lawyer. I just play one on this channel.
I wouldn't understand the physics of it. I'm not an executioner. I'm just the best goddamn bird lawyer in the world.
Prior to even considering carrying on your bike, you need to clearly understand the requirements for doing so legally. Gun laws vary dramatically depending on where you live, and there's pretty significant consequences in some cases for breaking these types of gun laws. For example, I'm pretty sure California automatically gives first-time offenders the death penalty. Maybe double check that with someone who lives there. Let me apologize to anyone watching outside the US, because I'm probably going to squash all your dreams of doing this. It's also easy for fellow US residents to forget that many countries don't allow citizens to own a gun, let alone carry it in public spaces. An example of some countries that effectively ban carrying guns outside of the home are Canada, Australia, Japan, and the UK. To get a license to carry a gun in some countries requires a valid reason for wanting to do so. And no, personal protection isn't considered a valid reason. Most of the time to get a license requires having an occupation that necessitates using a gun. So cops, active duty military, security, and the like. Countries with these restrictions include Russia, the Philippines, the Czech Republic, and Jamaica. Enough about places you can't carry a gun. Let's get back to Freedom Land and talk about places you can carry a firearm while on your bike.
We need to let Mommy know. Knock on the door a few times to get her attention. Oh, hello there. My name is Buddy Washington. We've constructed a fantastic world of wonder and joy that sets its sights on a future where guns become an integral part of the lives of all good American patriots. Welcome to the American Dream!
Basics for legally carrying a firearm on a motorcycle in the US. Generally, transporting a firearm secured in a case is legal everywhere in the US. However, I'm guessing that's not what you want to do, because if you're watching this, then you probably think the point of bringing it with you is to be able to access it quickly and easily, and having it in a backpack, trunk, or saddlebags isn't exactly what I would call accessible. 14 states don't require any special permit to transport a gun on your person, concealed or not. Everywhere else, you'll need to go through a permitting process before packing a gun around. If you require a permit, this usually means you'll go down to a county or state governing building, fill out some forms, pay some sort of fee, possibly be fingerprinted, and then wait a few days or weeks. If you plan on traveling out of state with your gun, maybe to one of those bad boy biker rallies where everyone does coke and drinks for a week straight, you'll need to confirm the requirements to carry in those states. Permits are state controlled, so a permit from one state might not be valid in another state. Legality of actually drawing and using a firearm publicly. One final thing to discuss before we decide if and how we're going to carry. What are the laws around drawing and firing your gun? AKA using deadly force to defend yourself or someone else. The most restrictive laws are referred to as duty to retreat, and it means that in all situations, even if you're in your own home, you must attempt to flee from a situation or assailant before actively defending yourself with a gun. So if you use a gun to defend yourself in these places, you will open yourself up to any number of laws around violent crime. Assault, battery, manslaughter, murder are all possible. So you should think very carefully about this if you live anywhere with these standards. The second most restrictive standard are called castle doctrine, which means that you have a duty to retreat unless you are in specific circumstances or locations, such as your home, car, or other form of abode. Most states have some form of stand your ground law, meaning you do not have a duty to retreat in most situations. Bree is an example of this situation. When she had her altercation where a man approached her on her motorcycle, she was not bound by law to attempt to escape from him before using her gun to defend herself. Don't confuse that though with her or I saying that not retreating was the correct choice. This is once again a matter I'm not going to wade into, as the ethics and morality of using deadly force to defend yourself gets very complicated very quickly, other than to express that you should seriously think about the potential consequences of using a gun in an altercation, compared to the risks, before you strap up and walk out the door the first time. Alright, let's talk about carrying options and considerations. There are a nearly unlimited number of ways to carry a gun. There's belt holsters, ankle holsters, tactical straps with holsters, shirts with custom gun pockets, backpacks for guns, leg straps. These holsters that double as a girdle to keep that dad bod in check. My point is that you're never going to decide what's right for you without filtering some stuff out. If you want to carry on a motorcycle, then I'm going to suggest some requirements. Comfortable in seating positions. So options like appendix carry aren't really ideal. Holsters that have good securing mechanisms to ensure the gun doesn't fall out, fly off, and might even stick to you if you layer down. So outside the waistband stuff or less secured clothing pockets seem risky. Most people I know wear gloves already, so having something that's accessible with gloved hands is a good idea. Options that require a lot of dexterous finger movements to undo straps, unzip pockets, or manipulate components can be foregone. Concealable on and off your bike, understanding what your typical individual preferences in riding gear are. After researching, I've dialed in on 2 primary styles of holster that meet these requirements and are compatible with virtually all motorcycle riding postures. Those are shoulder holsters and in-waistband systems.
The first carrying method I'll show you is shoulder holsters. There are of course thousands of options for shoulder holster systems from small shops to larger distributors, but I'm going to discuss some mostly universal considerations with my Galco system. And just to start off, of course, I've cleared all the weapons, cleared all the firearms, there's nothing inside of them, removed all the ammo. Before you start testing this stuff out yourself, make sure that you clear them, make sure that you're not using any ammunition. You're going to be manipulating, you're going to be touching them, you're going to be like, accidentally touching the trigger. Don't fuck around with this stuff, okay? A correctly fitted shoulder holster can be very comfortable and functional for distributing the weight of your gun, and it shouldn't slap around much. The gun should be as far up in this armpit area as comfortable, with the muzzle pointed either upward a bit with the handle down, or horizontal if you're kind of a bigger person. You can kind of see how I've got mine up here. I made the initial mistake with my first one of kind of having it too long and dangling down here, and when I rode a lot of the time it would kind of slap up against my side in an uncomfortable way. One of the big advantages of shoulder holster systems is that they're very secure on your person. One of the big concerns of having a gun maybe outside on your belt or something is that there's a lot of wind kind of hitting you as you're driving down the highway, as you're stopping, as you're braking. A lot of stuff is happening. And even in the extreme scenario where you fall off your bike or you wreck, those things can kind of just fly off and you never know what's going to happen to them at that point. Whereas the shoulder holster system kind of stays on you really easily. It's hard, you're usually going to have your jacket on you, so the wind and stuff isn't going to really affect this. And again, as long as it's kind of tight and snug to your body, even if you fall off, it's going to be pretty hard for it to completely dislodge from you. Shoulder holsters can easily carry an additional magazine, which might feel important for some due to the limited capacity of smaller guns. With my XDM, it had a 16-round magazine, so I was really less concerned about storage, and I usually just wore an extra magazine to even out the weight distribution between the two sides. However, I like the fact that with the shoulder holster system on my Glock 43, I can carry an additional magazine because they're each only 6 rounds. It's also very agreeable with carrying while spending a lot of time in a seated position. These methods tend to be pretty concealable. Although they might print with tighter clothing, most people will probably just think you're fatter than you actually are. And it obviously turns into open carry if you sit down and take off your jacket at a restaurant to eat something.
Look, see, I've got gear, I just don't wear it.
The shoulder holster systems are also really easy to put on and take off compared to some of like the in-waistband systems. You can kind of just leave it hanging where your jackets and stuff are to easily kind of grab and slap on. Make sure that you're following all proper safety procedures as far as, if you have kids that you're locking it up, or if you live in a state where you have to like lock up the firearm before you take it out, make sure you're doing all of that, of course.
but as far as just kind of getting in and off, it's very easy and simple. That's the stuff that I think is objectively good about a shoulder system. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's maybe more neutral or maybe something you just kind of have to consider. If you're concealing your gun with a shoulder system, you're going to be wearing a jacket or something over the top. If you do need to access the gun, you'll need to zip your jacket down, you'll need to reach in, you'll need to grab it, unsecure it from its strap. It can be a little bit of a weird, unintuitive thing at first. So it's something you might have to practice, especially because you're often going to have gloves on. Depending on what type of glove you wear, whether you're just kind of using something simple and thin, or whether you're using like cold weather gloves like I use in the winter, this can be somewhat challenging. To safely draw on a shoulder holster requires somewhat of a odd chicken wing technique, or kind of, you got to do something with this arm. So usually it's recommended you either put your hand above the back of your neck, or you reach over to the side as you're drawing in order to prevent unintentionally drawing against your own body. Sometimes even as you push in to try and like release it, you can unintentionally kind of point it against yourself as you kind of go, and that's a little concerning, of course. If you're on your motorcycle, you might want to use your non-drawing hand to lift your jacket or covering away, so the motion might feel pretty natural. The complete movement for drawing with a shoulder holster is open your jacket, grab your gun, and unhook the secure backing with your hand, chicken wing with your other arm, point at your intended target. So it should look something like this, as opposed to, you know, this. This is a pretty complex motion, so you'll definitely need to practice to ensure you're being as safe as possible. Another thing to consider as you're looking at shoulder holster systems is that some of them are vertical, however, a lot of them are horizontal, like my Galco. Depending on your position on the bike, whether you're leaned back farther or lean forward, you might be pointing it at people behind you and around you. Or even when you get off your bike and you're walking around, you're kind of unintentionally pointing it at other people. This might make you uncomfortable because this will mean that the muzzle of your gun is pointing at people behind you a lot of the time. Everyone has a different comfort level with these types of design features, so you need to understand and accept these issues if you go with a shoulder holster.
Mid-video interjection to say, hey, like and subscribe.
Moving along from that, let's look at the in-waistband systems. There's a bunch of different types of in-waistband systems. There's appendix carry, there's side. The thing I think that works the best for riding is a on-the-back in-waistband system. These secure using clips to either the waistband of your pant or more commonly a belt. So to put the system on, we'll need to undo my pants, put it in, don't get fresh with me, and then we'll put the firearm in. Don't look. It's about to get a little weird. Now I'm going to move the clips around my belt. They're pretty tight. They're really tight. Now I'm going to slide it to where I generally want it to be. I like it a little bit kind of closer to the center. I'm going to put the firearm back in. Again, unloaded, all that fun stuff from earlier. Off the bike, this method is highly concealable, and one of the only options for concealment if you aren't big on the all the gear all the time type of mentality. However, at speeds, motorcycles push air over the top of the rider, which lifts loose garments the same way that a plane wing is lifted. This often is going to lead to the handle maybe showing on your lower back. If you ride a sport bike and are leaned way over, this will definitely happen if you wear any garments that don't stick directly to you, like a well-fitted jacket. Often what's going to happen is this. To utilize these systems, you might need to wear a different size of pant or adjust where your pants ride in your body to use this method, as the gun will likely add 1 to 2 inches to your waist. If your position on the bike is leaning against a backing, Or if you stop somewhere out on your ride, then this might be a little less comfortable, or you might just need to slouch a little bit to prevent pressure in the small of your back. I found it to be mostly fine even in a seated position, as I wear it above the top of my butt. Pancake-ass people might have a small advantage here. Most of these systems aren't going to have a space with a spare magazine connected to it, but you can get separate belt clips or pocket versions of that. In-waistbands are way more secure than out-of-waistband carry systems. Again, on a motorcycle, we're concerned about security. So an in-waistband system that's putting the gun behind your clothing, kind of underneath several things, is going to be far more secure than a system that puts it outside of your body. I think this is the most concealable way to carry a gun if you don't wear full gear at all times. This will also take some practice on drawing because it's kind of a little unintuitive for some people. When it's attached to you, it's in this position. So a lot of people want to take their hand and lean it back, kind of with the back of their hand facing them, and pull it out that way, right? But the problem with that is again, you kind of run into the situation where you can unintentionally be pointing it at your body as you go. These systems are designed to prevent you from doing that by encouraging you to take your open hand like this, put it behind your back, and draw kind of swinging wide around your body.
Okay, those are my recommendations and why. Whatever you choose, make sure you practice it. Don't be that guy who just rolls out with a gun because they think it's cool and then find yourself in the situation and end up shooting yourself or somebody else.
Wow, did you see how nimbly I danced around all that gun control stuff? Like a fucking ninja. If you're also impressed with how well I navigated this politically charged topic to provide you great information, like this video, subscribe, check out my Patreon, or any of these other fine digital establishments you can find me on. Until next crime, ride fast and take chances.